For a high-performing athlete as yourself who has been on track for over 15 years, what would you define as high performance?
For any athlete who does feel a little bit lost and wants more purpose, do it with God. High performance is being diligent. So coming to work, and I consider it work for me, but coming to practice, coming to the weight room, coming to your nutrition, like coming to what you need to do daily and being diligent with it. That's high performance. I was just doing so many things for the Lord, like literally for the Lord. And that's why I met my husband. So I've experienced, lower level of training, and I've experienced the highest and highest of levels of the best in the world. And I've seen that no matter how fast you are, enjoy the time that you do have with successes and don't allow even the failures to debilitate you, essentially.
Hello and welcome to yet another exciting episode of Beyond Finish Line with Star, where athleticism meets inspiration, a safe space where athletes come to share their untold stories, humble beginnings, setbacks, and how they overcame, diving into intersections of sports, lifestyle, and personal growth. And I am your host, Star Mpama. Today's episode, we have another special guest in the studio, a woman filled with so much knowledge and so much to give out. Yeah, you heard me right. So much knowledge and so much to give out. She is a one-time Olympic Games finalist, a one-time World Championship finalist, a one-time World Indoor Championship finalist, a one-time Commonwealth bronze medalist, a three-time Olympian, five-time national champion. My goodness, I'm just going to stop here because the list is endless. Yes, she is none other than Cindy Sember, popularly known as Cindy Ofili. Good evening, Cindy. How are you?
I am well. How are you, Star?
I'm doing amazing. I want to say a big thank you for making out time. You are such an amazing lady. Combining everything you do and you still do it excellently well is something that we don't find every day. And I want to say thank you for that.
Of course. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
Okay, so without wasting much of anybody's time, let us dive into the untold story of Cindy Ofili. So first thing first, as a hodler, I know you have three different descents, the British, the American, and a touch of Nigerian. So I'm sure it's fun knowing that you can just access any of these cultures at your own time and at your own will. So how did it all start and what prompted you into picking Great Britain?
Yeah, great question. So I've been running for over 15 years since I was, just young. I'm 30 now. So been doing it for a while. And ever since then, I have, like you said, the opportunity to run for Great Britain, America, or Nigeria. So my dad is Nigerian. My mom was born in England and I was born in America. So I have three citizenships. So for me, I just decided to go for Great Britain because just of the way they supported their athletes. And my sister actually ran with Great Britain first before me. So it was just nice to see how they treated her and everything with that. So kind of seeing her journey inspired me to do it as well. And I'm so grateful I did. It's been a phenomenal time running for Great Britain and I'm just grateful I did it. So yeah, I've been doing it for a while and gone to multiple world championships, gone to 3 Olympics, gone to European championships. I've done quite a bit. So my journey's been fun. It's been hard, not easy at all. But by the grace of God, I've overcome a lot and I've been able to grow a lot through it. So I'm grateful for it.
Amazing. You mentioned that your journey has been hard, not been easy, but you have been able to overcome a lot. I watched a video on your YouTube channel where you talked about almost quitting into becoming the star that you are today. So can you please throw more light into how all of that happened, the process, detailed process? I also saw a recent interview that was released where you were collaborated with, and you talked about how your injury drew you closer to God. So we would like to hear that journey.
Absolutely. So when I was, starting off at the age of 15, I didn't like track and field. It was very difficult. I wanted to give up and that was not fun. So I started the first week I did it. I was very bad at it and I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. So I quit. And so after I quit, I had the coach come back and tell me, like, you have potential, you can do good things. I see it in you. You should come try one more time. I didn't understand at the time why she was saying that, and I didn't really believe her. But at the same time, I prayed about it and asked the Lord to, like, show me. And I felt called to try it one more time. And even when I came back, it still wasn't an easy time, but I was able to, flourish about a couple months later, and I started seeing myself progress. And it took time, but when I stuck with it and changed my mindset, that led me to where I am now. So I think overall, I'm just so grateful that I listened to her and I didn't listen to my first instinct of giving up. But yeah, within that time, I went to Michigan for school, University of Michigan, did very well, got school records. Everything was going great. And I was grateful for the opportunity. And then I got injured. So my big injury came when I was 20-ish or 21. So right after I went to my first Olympics, I had just gotten fourth place and I was excited to start my professional journey. I had become a pro at that time. And then once I got injured, I was like, what am I supposed to do with my life? This is what I was called to do. I'm doing it as a job now. And the Lord just to allow this injury to happen. So I felt very, very discouraged. And so during this time, I prayed and I just said, Lord, I'm struggling. This is hard. I don't know how to get over this. And he just continued to tell me to just trust him, to lean on him, to grow with him, and that my journey will be okay. And I felt that. So I just trusted him with it. And God willing, through it all, he really came through. I learned my identity wasn't through sports. I learned that God was, he had the control. I really had no control at all with track. I learned that I can't do things without him. I'm doing it to glorify him, and it's not about me. And yeah, he taught me so many different lessons, but without that injury, I don't think I would have seen that. I was becoming maybe a little bit too self-absorbed maybe. And I was going down a path that probably wasn't the best. So I think all in all, I'm just really happy. Although I didn't like the injury and I didn't like going through the hard times, I think that it brought so much fruit. And, I'm still going through stuff. I just felt the Olympic Games 6 months ago and things continue to happen, but I just lean on God and I trust him. And I say, God, even though I don't like this, I know that something is coming out of it. So yeah, just leaning on him. And I'm happy that I've grown my faith through sports.
Okay, so for the experiences you have had, you saying this right now, it sounds a bit easy the way you're saying it, but I would want you to explain in details. Now, let me give you a clear example. We have athletes who say they are believers. As a matter of fact, I think of all profession, athletes tend to have the highest quotes for scriptures. Whether they believe in God or they don't believe in God, they just know that he's there. Right. And these persons might not even be believers. Now, right. And in situations where believers tend to suffer one injury or the other, it's like, oh God, why me? I'm a believer. I pray. How did this happen? How did you go from being able to stay in there despite that injury, not losing it completely? Because sometimes this injury might even make you lose your faith in God and, just wander into something else completely. But you said that the injury brought you closer to God. What I gathered from your story, you mentioned that you grew up from a Catholic home. So apparently you had the background for Christianity, yes. But it was in the process you now had your own personal relationship with God. So I would like you to throw more light on that, because this is what a lot of athletes are going through today. And some persons are just this person, but they have not come to find that true relationship. And some people are just wandering here and there.
Yes, totally. I think that's important. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It was not easy. And like you said, I grew up Catholic. So I did have a belief in God. I was going to mass and church every Sunday, and I was just really believing, but I wasn't the relationship wasn't quite there. So yeah, it was definitely not like a personal relationship. So it took pretty much the injury for that to become a thing. So once I did get injured, I had so much time on my hands. I'm like, okay, how do I fill my time? What do I do? I felt like kind of lost in a sense. And so that's when I started praying more, because I would pray before, but it was like, quick prayer here and there. It was never like dedicated time with God. So I'm like, okay, well, let me sit down and see what this looks like and spend, 20 plus minutes just praying. And then that was like the first step of the whole journey of just sitting down, learning that I actually love to journal. So my brain works where I write things down and my prayers down. And I just started to say it all to God. And I think it just really helped me get closer with him, because the moment I did that, the more I just felt his presence. And every single time I was intentional with, I'm going to take 10, 20, 30 minutes with God today, I would feel his presence. Even if I didn't hear like an audible sound or feel like he was saying something, I just felt him. And I knew that he was nearby and close to me. So I think just becoming consistent with special time, not like I'll give God my scraps, my last 5 minutes, my first five. Like, it's good to give God any time you have, but if you can be intentional and like really give him, the 20, the 30 minutes, if you have time in the day to do that, he will really come through for you, and he'll start to reveal himself to you and give you encouragement and strength that you didn't know you could have had. And so when I did that, I felt so much stronger. I felt led to go to other Christian events. So I went to like young adult functions, and I was just doing so many things for the Lord, for like literally for the Lord. So, and that's how I met my husband. So it was just like God was leading me to so many different things in that season because I was sensitive to his voice and I was intentional with my time. And it just made it more purposeful. It wasn't just about sports anymore. It wasn't just about, okay, God, if I pray to you, please help me come back. It was, how can I know more of him? How can I know more of his spirit and who he is and how he functions so that I can look like him. And so my perspective changed. It wasn't just about track anymore. And I became a more well-rounded person by doing this. So for any athlete who does feel a little bit lost and wants more purpose, do it with God. It will be the best decision ever. And it will make, even when you do come back if you're injured or just your time with like your sport, so much more enjoyable because you'll have a newfound purpose and strength, and just, it'll bring more meaning to the sport. So it made a difference for me, and I'm so glad I had it.
Amazing. So let me ask a more practical and physical question. Now, in situations where you go for competitions and after competing, it doesn't turn out as expected, what happens next?
Yeah.
I'm asking these questions because this is what we see in our day-to-day lives of athletes of today. So it's like I go out, I'm an athlete myself.
Oh, nice.
I know sometimes, yeah, I've struggled with the whole, okay, fine, Lord, I'm not doing this because I want you to make me win.
Yeah.
It gets to a point I'll be like, okay, you know what? Whether I win or I don't win, in fact, I don't care about the wins anymore. In fact, no more vision boards. In fact, it's all about God when I get out there. But the human in us, when we get out there, sometimes it's like, you're like, are you sure I'm really called to do this?
Yeah.
At the same time, it's like, okay, let me just try. Then you now compete and it doesn't now turn out fine. And the next thing you're like, you just don't feel like doing anything anymore. It just has a way of now pulling you backward. And somehow it now begins to look like God is a dispenser.
I agree.
So when you want to fix it, you run in. When it's fixed, you stay out. So what do you do in those times and those moments?
That's good. Yeah. I would say, I just lean on scripture. Scripture has been a huge thing for me. I never grew up in scripture, but it was like when I said the injury and just the past couple of years that I needed more truth spoken over my life and more just something tangible to look at to kind of remind me of what God says about me and who I am. And so I just started looking up scriptures about strength, courage, being fierce, like all that stuff, just to kind of instill my mind with positive thoughts. I think once I started doing that, I started remembering that in the moment of like, God is within her. She will not fail. I started reciting it over myself every day. And I started, even when I would be in a race, or not in the race, but I'm not thinking usually, but like right after or right before, I would say it. And if it doesn't go well, I'm just like, okay, this is hard. I don't understand why I put in the work, but I've learned that through so many ups and downs that nothing goes unnoticed with God. And, just because I went out there and give it my all and put my best foot forward, I know I did my part. And I know I glorified his name by doing it. And it's not always about the wins and the success and the national records that we glorify God through. I think sometimes we lose our perspective on what success really looks like. And sometimes it's really just being obedient. If God wants us to go do the sport and it doesn't bring the success that we think it's going to bring, then we have to be okay with that. Then maybe it's not about that. And I've actually had plenty of athletes and people come up to me and say, your journey of overcoming, the hardships and your falls and everything you've dealt with has encouraged me. And sometimes it's not about just the wins. People can see the things you're going through and how you handle it and what that says about you and, kind of relating that back to God. Because at the end of the day, it's not about us, And so I think when I changed my perspective of, okay, even though, I had this embarrassing moment, because the Olympics was probably the most terrible feeling of being on the ground after you've trained for 4 years and falling. But I remembered, like, you know what? If God wanted this to happen, I'm not saying he made it happen, but if he allowed it to happen, then there's a purpose behind it. And I have to be okay with that. And so I think just shifting my mindset, and it's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say that I haven't had days where I go back and doubt God and feel sad and don't understand. But I think the constant pursuit of him and going back and saying, okay, God, I'm sad today, I'm going to pray about this, is what keeps us drawing near to him and closer to him. And I think he allows these things sometimes too, so that we don't lose that spark of wanting to come back to him too. So that's what I've learned.
Okay, so if I understand you rightly, the word literally just helps. Like the Bible said, they are spirit and they are life.
Yes.
And so in situations where you are trying to motivate yourself, get yourself back together and all of that, everything still falls back to the word of God. Okay, now, I watched a couple of videos and I came to observe rather that you talked about accountability. So there was a particular video you were talking about people having people around them who can help them be accountable for some certain things, even when naturally they would not be able to do these things themselves, down to family, down to co-workers, co-athletes. That way they could be able to put in one or two things in order that naturally they wouldn't be able to do. So how has that been able to impact into your life as an athlete?
Yeah, it's done a lot for me. It's made a huge difference. So whether that was from coaching or mentors who have gone before me, for instance, my sister, like I told you earlier, she was somebody who taught me the ropes. Essentially, she would tell me, "Hey, this is what I think you should do, how you should go about it. Here's an agent that I used to work with." Like, she would just give me a lot of help, and having her was such a pivotal part of my career because I saw her do it and she gave me that advice. And now that I look back, I'm like, wow, she really led me down a positive path. So working with her, or, just even other training partners throughout the years of people who pushed me during my workouts, it's crazy how we're meant for community. We're meant for people, and we're not meant to just be isolated in this world. I mean, there's times where we need to just, be in the still place with God and focus on just us with, our intimate time. But there is a time where having that accountability, having those people around us is going to really help not only our physical lives, like I said, with sports, but also our spiritual life. So whether that is going to a church with a community of people who can help hold you accountable, or friendships with people who you can just have conversations just like this, like we're having, where you can strengthen and iron sharpening iron. Like, I think it has a pivotal way of making you a better person. And I think when I was going through my injury, I would look up people like older than me, or people in general on YouTube or whatever, who went through what I went through. I couldn't find that. And I was a little bit sad because there weren't people speaking on it. And so I kind of wanted to be that big sister for people who, felt down and low and just needed some encouragement. So I could just, give them that. And they felt like they had that community, even if it was just virtually. And so, yeah, I think it's just so nice to have accountability, people to tell you, you need to sharpen up. You need to do a little bit better. People to motivate you when you feel low and to tell you truth. I've had so many people like my husband and, siblings speak life over me and tell me like, you need to get out of this mindset because that's not going to do you any good. And that's changed a lot of times where I was going down a bad path mentally. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. I would encourage, people to start doing this from a very young age, if they can, to just continuously and find out mentorship, accountability in their lives.
Great. Speaking about the mental aspect of track and field, would you consider track more mental than physical? A lot of persons say it is not all about what you do on track, but what happens after, how you channel your mindset, the things you think in your mind, how you see yourself even before you run. Do you actually think that the mental part of track and field does a higher work compared to the physical?
Absolutely. I think track is a very mental game. And I think if you tell yourself you can't do something, you won't. There's been plenty of times where I have been physically in shape, but I was psyching myself out because I was like super nervous, to the point where I think it affected the way I was running and affected how, tense I felt. I think just sometimes we don't realize that our mental can impact our physical because we don't even see how much stress is putting on us. So telling yourself, you can do something and being confident in that. And what helps with that is being prepared. So if you put in the work and the time, you've put in the work at the time, like you feel more confident. So that's what helps me with my mental game is I've done everything I know I can do. I've prayed about this. I'm leaving it now in God's hands. And if I can just focus on, enjoying the journey, that's going to allow me to succeed and thrive. And that's been the big part of my game is like, let's enjoy, let's have a good time. I think, sometimes at the Olympics, I get too stressed and overwhelmed. And I'm not sure that's what happened at this one, but sometimes when you start to get overthink and start to get in your head, that's when things like this, like bad, can happen. And so, yeah, I just say have fun. And like I said, if you put in time and effort, then there's nothing to really worry about. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't go the way you want, there's always another try. There's always, next time. And there's a bigger purpose in the grand scheme of things. So, yeah, I think just remembering those things will help your mindset.
Over the past 15 years, would you say you have comfortably learned how to manage nervousness, and how are you able to do that? Because this is also an information that would help a lot of athletes out there learning to manage themselves even in competitions that they've never been to. Because as I've seen situations where you see an athlete during the season, they're coming in fine, they're dropping the times. Each competition there's a progression, then now when it gets to like nationals, world championships, and where it matters the most, and you're asking yourself, what happened? Let me give you a clear example. I run the 400 and the 800, right? So when my coach says, "Oh, Star, you have the 800 or you have the 600," I don't get nervous. I don't even worry. The one time my coach said, "Star, you're running the 400 next week." Throughout that week, as a matter of fact, a day to the day I was meant to travel, I cried. And I'm like, God, when? I'm putting in the work. I don't know. I'm tired of being in one particular spot for a long time. It's been 4 years and I'm putting in the work. You know what? I think I'm done. I think I'm not here for this. I called my pastor. My pastor now said, "Star, you need to calm down. First thing first, are you doing this for yourself or for the Lord?"
Right.
Because if you're doing this for the Lord, you wouldn't be scared. You wouldn't even be worried about the outcome. I mean, if he gives you the glory, he should be able to take the shame.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so in my heart, I'm like, God, give me a sign.
I get that.
When the day that I was meant to run finally came, you know what? I don't know, but like, I just took it off my mind. I said, I'm not expecting any time, no performance. I'm just going to go out there and just run as I can. Anything that comes out. But the amount of fear that took me even before the race itself, for me to go as far as crying, I now asked myself, if for myself, who I've heard stories, I've spoken to people, and I still feel this way, what happens to people who don't have anybody to speak to? I mean, how are these things being managed?
That's a great question. And yeah, I think it's very normal to feel that way, because I know I've had plenty of races and meets where I was putting that pressure on myself as well. I'm like, I want to do so well, but I put in the work and then literally tears will start falling out my eyes. So I get it. I think the biggest thing that's helped me is even just breathing and slowing it down, because sometimes I can start hyperventilating and just, getting so worked up and my chest is beating. And when I'm like on the line, or even before, a night before when I'm sleeping and things start to work up, just calming my breathing has been a big thing for me, and just slowing down. I think visualizing, my race over and over again, but like in a way where it's like I'm smiling and I'm enjoying it and thinking about all the positives I want to see out of it versus, oh my gosh, what if this happens? What if this happens? I think just thinking about the positives if you can. And then, like you said, if you don't have people around you, just speaking truth of yourself, like, okay, I put in work, I've put in time, I've done everything I can do. I can't do anything at this point. So what's the point of stressing out? Like literally, I had to be like telling myself that every day of like, I can't go and train more before this race. So there's nothing else I literally can do. So the work is put in. I have to just go out there and execute. And I really like what you said about just going out there and not putting a time to it, because I tend to get into races where I'm like, okay, I want to run this time. I want it to look like this, but you have no control over that. You don't have control over wind, or if you hit something, or if somebody hits you in a race. So there's things that come out of your control. So I think just saying, I want to have fun, and I'm going to put my best foot forward and put the best, performance I can out there, and then let the rest take care of itself. And I think that's what you really have to do, because it's really hard to calm our brains. But if you can just put it in a positive spot, and I think that's going to help set you up for success. So that's what I try to do. It's not easy though, easier said than done. It takes a lot of practice. I think your question earlier was, do I feel like I've accomplished or I've overcome? Not quite. I think sometimes I have to remind myself of all this stuff I'm saying right now. But there is an element of healthy nerves. I think you need to have an element of I am nervous, because that shows you care. So I don't think it's bad to feel a little bit anxious. I won't say anxious. That's not a good word, but like a little bit, let's say, like uppity about it, because it shows, okay, there's something different's happening here. Because I've had times where I didn't feel nervous and my performance was bad because I didn't actually train. I didn't treat it like a track meet. I just treated it like a practice. So there's a balance too. So I will say, like, it's not all bad to have a little bit of nerves.
So for a high performing athlete as yourself, who has been on track for over 15 years, what would you define as high performance?
High performance is being diligent So coming to work, and I consider it work for me, but coming to practice, coming to the weight room, coming to your nutrition, like coming to what you need to do daily and being diligent with it. That's high performance. I think we can complicate it and say high performance is, having this much sleep a night and putting in this many hours. It's not all about that. It's the little things that lead up to success. If we aren't doing those small things, then we're not going to see the big picture at the end of the day. The small, minute details are what are going to set you up for success. Because I've experienced, lower level of training, and I've experienced the highest and highest of levels of the best in the world. And I've seen that no matter how fast you are, those little things of that week in training, I was sluggish, or I didn't stretch enough before this race, so I felt tighter in the race. All those little things make a difference. So whatever you have to do, putting it, being the best and the most diligent with it is what's going to be the best for you.
So those little things we do throughout the week, throughout the month, is what, makes up everything at the end of the day. For these 15 years, what have been your highest moments, lowest moments? If I was to guess, I would say it was the Commonwealth when the audience sang a birthday song while you were competing. So for you, over the past 15 years, what have been your highest and lowest, and how have you handled those moments?
Yeah, so that was a huge one. The Commonwealth Games, that was like phenomenal. I didn't even know. So for those of you who don't know, I was, I think, turning 28, and on my birthday, I was racing, and they sang happy birthday to me right after, and it was amazing. So that was great. And then I medaled. So yes, I even got a medal. It was my first outdoor medal other than my national championship. So I was very grateful for that. I would say I got a fourth place finish at the Olympics, my first Olympics. And that was a big one because I think I was just really nervous about just, everything happening. I was young. It was my first Olympics. And just to show myself age and, experience doesn't have anything to do with it. It's all about what, God is calling you to do that day. And God wanted me to perform that day. And I felt very, very blessed to finish fourth and almost medal at being where I was that time. So that was a big one. My first NCAA championship was a big one because I had just qualified by just the smallest margin. I wasn't even supposed to be, winning it because I was the last to make it into the final. And then I won out of lane 8. And it was just a really cool experience of just because, yesterday didn't go well does not mean tomorrow can't go well. It's very much metaphor for life. So, I've had plenty of experiences, I would say, where it's I was the underdog and I did more than it was expected. And I think those were the main, okay, this was good. I'm happy with it. So I think those were the main ones. And then you said the lowest, my injury. So 2017 was a big low for me because I was out for a year and a half, couldn't do what I loved doing. That was hard. And then I fell at the Olympics, which was very, very hard. And that really stunk because I was in shape and I was very ready to do something. So I think there's times that you have the best days, and there's times that the way days can be the worst days, and it all comes with sport. It's all about balancing both. So never let your highs get too high and your lows get too low as well.
You're filled with so much experience, so much knowledge, and it's just the grace at which you speak about it. You just make it sound and look so easy.
It's so
and I'm grateful. Okay, so let's get a bit into family now. And how has it been being married and being an athlete? How do you manage marriage so well and still do what you do?
It's a journey. It's not every single day feels perfect, but I will say having a spouse who's very understanding helps, and somebody who knows that this was a passion of mine and something I love doing. So before we got married, I told him about me being an athlete, and he knew, and he understood. He expected that it was going to be time consuming. And so I think just that setting the bar where it is at the beginning and making it clear is very helpful. And, he knew that I'm going to be having to leave for weeks on end, and, we're just going to have to make it work. And it was fine. And it has been great. We communicate through phone, through video all the time. He'll come when he can. He came with me to Paris. He came with me to Croatia. He's been all over with me. Like you said, it's not feasible for him to always come because he has his own job. He's not a track athlete. He's an engineer. And so I think the biggest thing has been the communication aspect. Because if we weren't communicating and I was doing my own thing and he was doing his own thing, then I think that the marriage couldn't flow. And so, yeah, I think the biggest thing is just working together and then being diligent and also saying like, okay, when I'm done, I can, I'm going to do whatever I can to help you. And when I'm not at the track, I'm spending time with him or being intentional with what time we do have, cooking when I can. And I'm doing everything during the time I have with him. And I think that's what's been really helpful. And he's super supportive. I mean, he loves to see me thrive on the track when I am running, and takes video of me and does a lot of other technical things to help me. Like he's literally created things to help me run faster. So yeah, it's really nice to have a spouse who understands, and we just work together. So when I'm not running, I'm helping him with his stuff. And I think it's just marriage is a mutual working together thing. It's not just about one person on one side. And the biggest thing is communicating, like I said earlier, just working together and loving each other through
the ability to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So talking about not running, you mentioned that you are presently on a pause on track, if I'm right. Is this you stopping to recuperate, or this is the instruction from the Lord?
Yes. It's, I think the biggest thing for me is I prayed about it and I wanted to know like, okay, God, like, do I go another 4 years? Do I continue? And I haven't quite had that answer, but the biggest thing has been right now I need to take a break just to kind of, like you said, recuperate, to pray about things, to figure out what life looks like outside of sports, and, to give my body the rest it needs. And so, yeah, I've been doing that. I've been dealing with family stuff, and it was very necessary in this time, and I definitely needed the break. So definitely praying about it. I'm not saying I'm retired, but I definitely am taking, this 2025 season just to kind of get things together and figure out what the Lord wants for us.
Do you think that we as athletes sometimes get completely lost in the career and tend to forget that, okay, there's something else outside sports? Because right now you said while you're in this season, you're also taking a look at what life has outside sports, because you see athletes put in so much. And at the end of the day, by the time they are retired, you're asking, did this person do track? All your accolades. I mean, why did your life turn out like this?
Right.
Yeah. So in situations like this, do you think that it is something that one has to hold on to cautiously, that, okay, track and field isn't going to be here forever. So you constantly have to remember, invest, build yourself in other areas, and knowing that someday you would hang that spike and something else comes into play.
Absolutely. I think what opened my eyes to this was when I got injured in 2017, because I had just entered into my career, like literally fresh off of my first contract, everything. And I was like, oh, okay, I got about 8 years, 9, 10, whatever it looks like. I was so excited. And then I got hurt like 2 months later. And I'm like, what the heck is happening? I was so sad. Like, I didn't know how to handle it. And so, and I had doctors tell me, yeah, you might not ever come back. Like, you might come back and you might not be good again. So you might as well retire. I'm like, retire at 20 years old? Like, what are you talking about? So it was really hard or 21. It's really hard to navigate. So when I sat there in that season, I was like, okay, I love track, but this can be taken away from me at any moment, like literally at any time. So I need to invest in other things. And so in that season, that's when I invested in my relationships. I think I told you earlier, but I met my husband in that season because I started going to different groups to kind of like get plugged in and involved. And that's where we met. I started figuring out what do I even like. So I started YouTube in that time. And that helped me to learn that I love speaking just like this and talking with people, encouraging and doing all these different things. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't really been self-reflective and said, who is Cindy outside of the track? And so I think it's really crucial and important for athletes to do that, because I am in this break now and I have to reevaluate it once again, because it's so easy to get identified as just one thing. And I'm the athlete. I'm the person who runs those times. And yeah, you might be now, but in 5-10 years, you won't be. There's going to be another person and you're going to be retiring. So I think if you can, as soon as possible, figure out those things you like, get a degree if that's something you want to do in school, just do whatever you got to do to learn who you are outside of it and enjoy it. And that's what I've had to do. And I'm really liking it. I'm liking figuring it out. It's not the most comfortable because I do feel like track has been such a huge part of my life. And so trying to navigate that's not always easy, but it's so fruitful and it's so good to know that you're not just one thing, because there's so much more to life.
So when you hear the word beyond the finish line, what comes to mind?
There's more to life than what you're doing, whether that is in sport or that's one goal that you have, I think you have to remember that there's so many things that God wants us to do while we're here, and navigating what that looks like and figuring out what that is for you personally is the key. And that's what's going to make you feel the most purposeful. And then at the end of the day, remembering it's just for His glory. It's not just about our accolades out here on earth. It's not just about success and fame, but at the end of the day, it's to remember there's a bigger purpose at hand. And when we're living in that calling, that's when we find the most meaningful life.
It's been an amazing, inspirational words. Just so much to take in. Communication, accountability, faith, picking up together. And all of these things is just what I believe we need to hear in our everyday life. And I want to say thank you for everything you do, being able to put out those posts you put out on Instagram. You don't know how much it does. You don't know how many persons you save, and also what you do on YouTube. It just sometimes it's like when somebody's at that point of giving up, that, okay, these people at their highest also faced these things you faced. So it's not like they are robots and you are the one that the devil decided to decided to unleash on. So I'm grateful. I've heard people say, put God first. I was thinking about it today while I was riding my scooter. And I said, wait, what is this whole thing about putting God first? I mean, we have the relationship, we pray, we hear. Putting Him first, is it that when I want to buy a pen, I'll be like, God, I'm about to buy this pen. When I want to start practicing, I'll be like, God, I'm about to start practicing. I mean, you know the way it sounds. When you think about it practically, it's like that is what it is. Before you take a cup of water, Lord, I'm about to take a cup of water. Is that how you see? Is that how you would say put God first is, or there's something else to it?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think obviously God gives us free will. So little decisions of, what should I do here? Like, I think God's like, what, you choose, like you're good. But at the same time, I do think involving God in little decisions is important, and just putting Him first just means keeping Him at the center and keeping Him as like your best friend, essentially. Like, I think the way we talk to our best friends is we're always like, I want their opinion on this, or I want to tell them about this. I want to share my exciting things. I want to share my hardest things. Like, that's how we should treat our relationship with God. And I think the more I do that, the more I grow closer to Him, and the more that everything I'm doing is more, more beneficial for me. So if I'm trying to make a big decision in life, if I'm trying to make a small decision in life, even if I'm just trying to, have a good day, I'll pray in the morning when I wake up and offer it up to Him and say, God, okay, I offer up my successes today for you, or even the things that I feel like I'm failing at, because it's all for you at the end of the day. So just keeping Him at the center. But I mean, I think, He wants to be involved in everything you do, but that doesn't mean like every single second you're asking God, what do I do? What do I do? Like, He gives us a brain for a reason and we can make the decision. But if we are keeping ourselves rooted in His word, His truth, and prayer, I think it does, your brain naturally aligns with His. And when you pray more about that, it makes it easier to follow God's will, because you're just you're going the same trajectory, the same line with Him. So keeping yourself rooted daily is what's going to help you not get off course.
What would be your word of advice for our viewers, younger athletes who are retired but don't know what to do with themselves, those who feel lost, those who probably is going through one depression or the other? Because right now, mental breakdown is a huge thing in track and field. And when it hits in like this, it's like it destroys every other area of one's life. So what would be your advice?
So I was going to say that there's purpose in every single season you're having. I understand that there's people who are going through depression and things that are really difficult, that sometimes it doesn't feel like there's purpose. But if you can just find a silver lining, or like something small, and, take that and ride with it, there will be success out of it. I think sometimes we just tend to think that if you're going through a hard time, there's no value, there's nothing going well, that there's nothing positive. And I actually even now reframe my mindset of, even though this sucks, this doesn't feel good, there's something that's going to come out of it. I might not see it now. I might not see it even in a year, but down the road, I am going to feel positivity coming out of it. And so that's been really helpful for me, just to remember that no matter what, like there's stuff coming out of this. And I think just enjoying the success when it does come, and the fun, and when you're just going through day-to-day life, it just taking the small moments and really mesmerizing and just enjoying that time, because that's what's going to allow you to, never forget the blessings you do have. And so enjoy the time that you do have with successes, and don't allow even the failures to debilitate you, essentially.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So, my beautiful viewers, we have come to the end of this episode. I'm sure you all have been inspired in one way or the other. You must have something to take home because I have been fueled. We have come to the end of this episode, and until we meet again, I still remain your host, Star Palmer. Be good, stay safe, and bye for now.